Now, without further ado, I present Tuan Haji Ali Munawar.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alamin. Wassalatu wassalamu ala Rasulil Kiram Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Saudara pengerusi, Saudara Tan Teck Beng, tuan rumah bagi seminar ini, teman yang saya kenali lama, yaitu Dr. Dharmananda, para panelis, tuan-tuan dan puan-puan sekalian. I know I shall be very brief, simply because we don't have much time to be long-winded. My religion is very simple. Our philosophy is very simple until and unless we know each other, we don't love each other. We have come to you, you have come to us. We have at least know that you like us, we like you. Ladies and gentlemen, this is a very difficult question, not as it sounds, racial harmony. If there is no harmony, what will happen to the music? If there is no racial harmony, there is no religious harmony, what will happen to this nation? This is a very young nation of 30 or 40 years. We have lived together here. Our forefathers have brought us here somehow or other by the accident of history. We have come from all big and small nations of the world, great civilizations of China and India. Somehow or other we are transplanted here. We have no other place to go. Should anything happen to Buddhists, the same thing would happen to Muslims. I know politicians have talked so much about racial harmony, religious harmony, but can we do something more? Can we do something more like this? Let us have good rapport between Christians, Hindus, Muslims, Buddhists, and all who love this country. Now, if you ask me whether there should be racial harmony, I said yes. Whether is this possible to have racial harmony, the question and the answer is yes and no. Religious harmony is something that is from here. I would ask you to believe in God. I would ask you to become good Buddhists as much as I would ask myself to become good Muslim. A good Buddhist equal to a good Muslim, equal to a good Hindu, equal to a good Christian, makes Malaysia what it is. Ladies and gentlemen, with due respect to all of you who have spent all your time listening to sermons, talking about religions, I think basically this experience is going to be the same throughout the world. You open just the pages of newspaper in the morning. You will see what is happening next to us in the Philippines, in Indonesia, in Ceylon, in India, Pakistan, and numerous other countries. But I think, would you invite those incidents there to come here? Would you invite those so-called religious people to come here and teach you how to fight, how to struggle? Would you train them in America to become commandos? I think it is against the teachings of all religions. All religions, sir. Ladies and gentlemen, I know, as I said to you, we are talking and treading on a very dangerous ground. Simply because Islam is the religion of peace, as much as Buddhism. I am representing the Interfaith Fellowship. This fellowship composed of all major religions in the country. Therefore, to us, we have ascended beyond that boundary, whereby we can distinguish between Hindu and Islam, between Hindu and Buddhist, between Buddhists and Christians. As I see your faces with smiles, with hope, I know that you are you are going to be the nucleus of this great adventure. We shall form a group of people who will fight for the good cause of religion. Now, to be a good Muslim, one has to believe that all men are one, and mutual rights must be respected. Semua manusia adalah satu bangsa, dan hak-hak setiap manusia itu hendaklah dihormati. This is basically what Islam is. Now, we are sending our message not to only Arabs, Malays, or Chinese, Indians or Pakistanis. We are directing this message to all humanity. Then again we say in the Quran, our holy book, keep together in your noble brotherhood. Share its joys and sorrows. During happy times and bad times like now, economic recession and so forth. Strive and fight the good, and must perform good fight, and fear not, for this life is very short, and hereafter is eternal. Now, I cannot talk to you about what is going to happen hereafter. I have not gone there and come back. Now, if anybody who can say that that is experience is bad, nasty, unpleasant, I think I don't believe it. Now, third one, I want to emphasize the Quranic passage, simply because I think this is going to be found in your books. It is found in the Bible. It is found in Sikhism and Buddhism and all the other religions. It says, stands out firmly for justice of all, even against yourself or your nearest of kin. Now this self, that you and me, sometimes we are doing injustice, and many a times we fail even to recognize our own self. Buddhism, Hinduism, Sikhism, and all religions of the world is trying to teach you that you must understand yourself. I could be in the robe of a priest. I could be in the jubba of an imam. I could be preaching and giving sermons in the church. But in me here, it's all waste of efforts. There's no love, no understanding, no harmony, and nothing. So that is empty. Again, I say this. We respect all humanity. Now, you are a created being of God. We respect, as much as Buddhism says, thou shalt not kill. You must not kill. Because life is so precious. No one has the right to kill the other. Now, killing is not just a matter of taking M16 and shoot. No. There's another way of subtle killing, they call it. You see, subtle killing means I don't like you. I say to another person, you know, that man is bad. Backbiting, they call it. Now, that is killing also. He is going to be perished simply because it's just a matter of word. On our expression, the tongue is important. Whatever you utter, here I think how many thousand words I've uttered before you, sir. I know each word that I utter here has significance. Now, if I utter something bad, unpleasant, unacceptable, before I leave here, I would ask you to pardon me. The best of arms, says the Quran, is that which the right hand giveth and the left hand does not even know. Again, it is attested by Holy Prophet Muhammad and many other great prophets in the world. Sometimes people give charity, they want some people to recognize that he is giving charity. Now these are some of the deeds that we perform because we feel that our responsibility is not to just oneself, me, but to all humanity. Because we said earlier, all mankind are one. So God is one. Ladies and gentlemen, as I stand before you, I know that I will be the last person. I'll be the last person to feel very unpleasant. If there is a feeling within us all that we cannot create harmony. No, harmony, it takes two to tango. You cannot just dance alone. You don't expect the Muslims to do alone and then we have harmony, therefore. As much as the Muslims shouldn't expect the Hindus or the Buddhists to be pleasant and kind throughout, they themselves are not kind. No, we want everyone to complement each other. Like this morning, why I feel so bloated? Simply because I'm privileged to have come to this hall. To me, this is the house of God. To me, this is a place where you utter words that will go and seep through your mind, through your brain, and our system can communicate each other simply because I think we all one. You know, great Shakespeare, one of those writers which was celebrated by English literature, mentioned that we eat the same food, we breathe the same air, all these things. Today we have to read those lines again. Now, why do we do this? Among our people, I don't want to mention Islam or Buddhists or Christians. You know, they are talking about harmony. They are talking about coexistence between themselves. But in actual fact, they are the one. They are the one who are trying to split this edifice, the unison that we have had established for many, many years. Now, we don't want other parties to tell us what to do. What we want to do today is, as you get out of this hall, remember this, that Haji Ali, his name is only a Muslim name, but he is as good as Dr. Dharmananda, perhaps not. Young Muhammad, Dr. Go, I think we have met many, many years before, and for some time we have not met each other. Once I met him in a round table, that was we were celebrating a dinner, when someone from, was it from the Dalai Lama, somewhere from northern India came. He was surprised a Muslim was sitting next to him. This was purely a Buddhist affair. I said, Dr. Go, you know, all these years, whatever time I shall have from now onwards, I shall spend it simply because I want to see that the whole Malaysian people, whatever religions they belong to, will be together. Now, this has been the aspirations of most of our people, most of our leaders, and of course, not the least, of those people sitting in front. Now, Dr. Go, to do justice to me and to you all, I won't take any more of your time, but to say that I bring a message of love to all of you, and I do hope we shall meet each other here again. Thank you so much for the privilege.
Thank you very much, Haji Ali Munawar. I am sure that you have said enough to stimulate questions later on, so I'm sure we will hear more of you later in the morning. The second speaker is Reverend Julius Paul.
Thank you for this opportunity of being able to share with you in this topic of religious harmony. Chairman, ladies and gentlemen, members of the panel, I have an apology to make. If you look at your program sheet, Bishop E.B. Muthusamy, my bishop, is supposed to be your speaker this morning. He called me at 7:30 today and said he has been taken ill and therefore he would like me to stand in. And once the bishop has spoken, we are in no position to refuse. We just have got to come and stand and face the squad, so to speak. So I hope that you will bear with me, and as I share with you some thoughts, you'll be sympathetic if my presentation is not the best. See, when we talk about mission in the Christian perspective, when we talk about ministry, we are talking about particularly a human response to what God wants us to do. That is to say, it's a human response to a divine commission. God has committed us to a particular task. And for Christians, it includes evangelism, as you have seen, that we go and actively propagate and share the gospel, as well as social responsibility. That means we take interest in the well-being of the total man. In the Gospels, we talk about God who has reached out in a self-giving service. The word we use today is to deny yourself, take up the cross and follow me. That was the command of Jesus. And today he's asking the Christians to do the same. We talk of a God who came in human form, shared our humanity. He came to serve and not to be served. And therefore he portrayed the role of a servant, and servanthood is very much part of our being. We are very well aware that Malaysia is a multi-religious and a multicultural society, as well as a multi-racial society. Christians for many generations, because in one sense the Western world represents the Christian faith, have always assumed a very crusading stance. We started out with the Crusades when we went to Jerusalem to destroy the Muslims. And therefore we find that in our approach, we sometimes have a very arrogant maybe, or a very crusading style. And this has been set for us very clearly by the Portuguese and the Spanish, who came to Malaysia to get spices, gold, and glory for God. But when we look at the Gospels, Jesus does not talk about a crusading mind, that is someone who goes out with an element of arrogance, but he talks about a crucified mind. Someone who is prepared to deny, take up the cross, and follow him. He is expecting of the church and of Christians a servant mentality, and this is very clearly shown in his own life when he washed the feet of the disciples. And therefore, when we talk about religious harmony in a multi-religious society, the answer is yes, that we can have this harmony if we give up a crusading mentality and live up to a crucified lifestyle, that is the life of service expected of Jesus. When we talk about tolerance, that is, we accept each other. That means we accept the presence of minority groups and allow them the right to live in a multiracial and a multi-religious society. Religious harmony is possible. Now there are two things which I would like to highlight today. One thing, it is the particular. You see, there are certain particularities of the Buddhists, certain things which are particular of the Hindus, the Christians, and the Muslims. As a Christian, I would like to talk about my belief, my doctrines, my practices, and my traditions which I represent. You see, we are historical beings. We come out of a particular history and we have a particular perspective on things. For example, carol singing before Christmas is very much a Christian habit, and this we would like to uphold. House meetings or house prayer meetings has become a very Christian approach in gathering people into discipleship training. And therefore, when we must recognize and accept those particularities of the different faiths, but at the same time, there are certain universal values which we should, as a body, work towards. For example, all religions, regardless of where we come, whether we are Buddhists, Christians, Muslims, or Hindus, or Sikhs, must recognize human suffering, must recognize the drug problems. And when we help out one another, we should do it regardless of our religion, race, or creed. It is only when we are able to see human suffering in a universal way and not seeing it as particularly a Buddhist problem or a Muslim problem or a Christian problem or a Hindu problem that we can transcend our particular mentality, our particular parochialism or ghetto mentality and move into something universal or harmonious. You see, help is today needed in Lebanon. We have read about this in the papers. But it should not only be the role of Muslims alone. It is not a message addressed to the Muslims alone. It is to Buddhists, it is to Christians, it is to Hindus, that we as individuals, we as a society, we as a religious community should say, in what ways can we help the Muslims in Lebanon? Christians were arrested in Singapore. It is not a Christian problem, but it is a problem which we all, every human being, recognizing that there's something wrong in that particular procedure, should come out and say, this is what we believe and this is what we stand for. Therefore, when we want to talk about religious harmony today, we should move out of our particularism, remove all kinds of suspicion, all kinds of suspicious attitude, and get into the universal, that is to say, to fight for human rights, to fight for those issues that we as a human race will stand for. Therefore, unless we combine our forces, even in the name of religion, to fight for what is right, to fight for right values, can we establish the credibility in our own faith. It is not nice if we say, those Buddhists, they only fight for their Buddhists. If a Christian is arrested, they wouldn't bother. It is not a pleasant statement. But we should, if it is wrong, we should stand up and say, that is wrong. Then the question of distrust, the question of suspicion is removed, and we begin to recognize that even Buddhists are our brothers. Even Muslims are our brothers. Even Hindus are prepared to work with us when we see certain things wrong happening in our country. And when we talk about religious harmony, the question of trust, the question of suspicion and distrust must be removed totally. Then only then we begin to feel the harmonious atmosphere that we live in. Many a time you've read in the press about permits being denied for lion dances. And sometimes immediately suspicion is sowed. We have been going caroling on the 24th of December. And we normally start at 7 in the evening and finish about 4 in the morning. This has been a Christian tradition. But of recent our permit says you should stop at 12 o'clock. You cannot go after 12. And immediately we begin to feel hurt. Somebody is trying to step on our toes or take away a privilege which we practice only once a year. And therefore, when we talk about religious harmony, in all that we do, we should remove the element of suspicion. We should remove the element of mistrust so that trust can be built. And therefore, we can talk about one total human race. And this begins with our children. What kind of an education are we giving our children in our homes? Are we saying that God created all man, God loves all men, that all men are brothers and sisters? With these questions, I would like to leave you. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Reverend Julius Paul. I must say that our Julius Paul speaks with the eloquence of Julius Nyerere. Next speaker, Mr. Harbhajan Singh.
Reverend Dr. Damananda, Young Brahma Dr. Go, Tuan Haji Ali, Manawa, Reverend Julius, and my good friend Mr. Vijaya Vikrama. It is a privilege for me to be here this morning to talk to you, because ever since I have been involved with the Interreligious Council, we have had the good fortune to meet our Buddhist brothers and have held long discussions with them, and they have often, very often, cooled us and schooled us to take very careful steps in whatever we do. It is therefore a particular privilege and an honor to be associated this morning with the 25th anniversary of this association. We pray that the good work that is being done will continue to be done in years to come. The topic before us is of great relevance, particularly now when throughout the world we are witnessing a fundamentalism of a sort, a revival of the religious spirit throughout the world. Let us now think what this can possibly mean in the local context. Now, as a Sikh, there are, by the way, only about 30,000 Sikhs, I'm told, in Malaysia. We are a very small minority. Not many people know that the Sikh Guru Granth Sahib, the holy book of the Sikhs, the first word is not a word. It is the numeral 1. This is quite unique. A word can change its meaning. We all have studied how words in historical context, as time goes by, they change their meaning. But the numeral 1 can only always, for all eternity, mean 1, and no more and no less. This 1 signifies the supreme reality. We do not claim it for the Sikhs, because all other religions too believe that the ultimate reality is 1. If we believe that the ultimate reality is 1, then it also follows that we may be praying in different ways, but the human race is ultimately 1. And this is strongly emphasized in our scriptures, in our attitude to life. We next would like to look at another quality, and that is the question of tolerance. The first guru of the Sikhs said, "Na hum Hindu, na Musliman." And he went on to explain further that neither I am a Hindu nor a Musliman or a person of the Islamic faith. But, he said, a true Hindu or a true Islam believer is that person who holds forth on the principles of these religions. And these principles are universal. the tolerance that we want can come through various ways. It comes basically through understanding and upbringing and education. Education can be formal or informal. In this country, we have to face the reality that Islam is the religion of the state. It's the national religion, if you like to put it that way. But at the same time, the rest of the country, the other half of the country, do have their own religions. And it is essential that if we want them to be good Buddhists, to be good Hindus and good Sikhs, that they be taught about their religions, at least not only in the house, because the home is the starting point of any such instruction and the example of the parents, but also that some recognition be given to this instruction. Nobody questions the right of the state to have a vast policy backed by finance to promulgate Islam. Nobody is bothered about it. I think we all agree, we accept the fact. But I think, as a corollary, if we are given equal citizenship, if we are to appreciate that we are also responsible people of the various different faiths and who are here and who cannot go anywhere else, as pointed out just now, then some consideration must be given. Then some consideration must be given. How is this consideration to be given? And that can only come through dialogue. Now, the dialogue that can come through is through various ways. We are a democracy. We have our elected representatives, and in the formulation of these policies which are guiding this nation, we must perforce think of the other half. Thinking alone will not do, because once you deprive a person or make him unhappy, then it is possible that you are sowing the seeds of discontent and distrust. We don't want that to happen. So we appeal, and we appeal to our elected representatives to have these in mind. We all know that the chance of having religious instruction given at primary and secondary levels has been denied. Pupils' own language classes have withered away, and in lieu, we have had moral education syllabus prepared. All of us in the council and at other discussions, the non-Islamic religions feel that there is nothing wrong in allowing a certain amount of time, no funds. We agreed to fund these teachings by our own funds. But why cannot a concession be made that once a week a Buddhist child can be allowed to have Buddhist instruction? It has never even been considered. Where is that consensus of give and take? That spirit of give and take that we are talking of. We are not going to convert the Islamic children. They have their own religious classes in the school. They are allowed. We got nothing to do with it. We respect that. But what is the harm if, at our own expense, the Buddhists or the Hindus or the Christians employ a teacher and give instruction. We have to think these things because formal education is an important part of a child's life. And if a child of the same faith has a dialogue with other children, he is able to understand his own religion better, and in that sense, eventually be able to communicate. If he knows his own religion better, he will be able to also sympathize with another person's religion. Right at the beginning, we think of this tolerance and of the knowledge of give and take, right from when the children are young. Not only is it a question of religion, it's now also a question of language. The unhappiness created by the depriving of the Chinese education, eclectic subjects, and Tamil in the university, these are surprises for us because we believe that there should have been more dialogue before the Senate decides on such an important issue. Because to deprive a person of his mother tongue and further education or higher education of any sort, I think is tantamount and is pretty serious for denying him one of his fundamental rights. Because even the Constitution and the Education Act says that you can have, other than the national language, you can practice your mother tongue. You can study your mother tongue. These are areas which have to be mentioned because these are areas which are leading us to differences. And I say this consultation and dialogue, I have just mentioned to you our local MPs, that is the formal area of consultation. But in addition, there is this informal area, that is the various religious organizations who can each get together and talk to people of the various faiths, including our Muslim friends, to appraise them of which way the dissatisfaction, the discontent that is simmering in our hearts can be reduced. I will give you now an example. Yesterday was Saturday, and I had the good fortune to listen to Dr. Halim, who is heading the Islamic Bank. I found myself very privileged to hear an exposition which I never thought of or never read or heard about of the Islamic concept of banking and how the Quran, the Hadith, and other sources have elaborated this concept of banking in such a way that it is no inferior. I repeat, it is in no way inferior to commercial banking. But I did not know it. So had I not attended this briefing, I would be completely unaware of the existence or the nature of Islamic banking. So I want to emphasize this because forums of this type are often held, but we tend to shy away from formulating the concrete areas of disagreement and to think about them and, if necessary, to make representations to the government either through formal or informal channels. The Constitution talks of the freedom of belief. Let us now take a look at some of the areas that are covered by this. The 10th Guru Guru Gobind Singh once said, Raj bina nahi dharm chale hai, nahi to dale gale mein. If you do not have the power to rule, you are unable to continue propagating your faith or practicing your faith. Propagating is not the correct word. Practicing your faith. We are a democracy. I come back to this because this is a key issue. Therefore, our forefathers, when they drafted the federal constitution, they said that there shall be religious tolerance, freedom to worship. But what do we find? We find that where else certain laws which provide for the erection and the acquisition and erection of places of worship are very liberal for our Muslim brothers. But when the difficulties, to overcome difficulties of this nature, where land is not available, resort is had to getting a place of worship, as the good Reverend said just now, maybe in a housing estate, or buying a piece of land and building a temple or church. Recourse is had to a number of other legislations. The building laws are invoked, and as a result, we are harassed. This again is a curtailment and a hurt under the Constitution. The Sikhs in particular are also suffering from another bit of discrimination, and that is, we have tried to produce our own priests in this country. I am told that even the Hindu community is having this problem because of our dialogues with them. So we are harassed by the immigration department, who first of all ask us whether the temple is registered. Under the Constitution, if we are free to practice and organize our religion in the way that we want, what is the necessity to have it registered? These temples have been there for the past 80 years, some of them. We do not understand this. We've had a few meetings, but what do we get? We meet the officials, we meet the minister concerned, we are promised that this will be looked into, but sad to say that the implementation aspect of this is still very, very unsatisfactory. And this is a kind of discrimination. A discrimination which surely our good brothers, our Muslim brothers, probably never intended. But for some reason or other, they feel that there should be these restrictions, which are causing us a lot of unhappiness. I would like to answer this question that has been posed. There has been harmony, religious harmony in this country, when we look back. But the current developments, which way we are heading, the overemphasis of Islamization, everything has to be Islamicized, has to be viewed with some concern. As I said earlier, the non-Muslims are fully aware of the constitutional position of the Islamic religion. But the daily bombardment in the press, in our daily life, in the social areas, in education, is such that it is creating doubts and fear. Although there may be no outward manifestations of this, but you ask in honest conversation, and you will find that people are unhappy. So if that is so, then the question, I'm afraid, we have to answer is yes and no, as said by even Haji Ali. There has been harmony, but we must treasure this harmony, and we must come down to sit on the table to formulate policies which do not tread on the rights and sensibilities of the other half of this country. And that is why this question is such a sensitive question. At the same time, it has to be discussed quite frankly and brutally with people who will think before policies are formulated. Thank you.
30,000 Sikhs. If the 30,000 Sikhs in Malaysia disappear and there is only one Sikh left, can you guess his name? Just one Singh. I hope that we appreciate that Tuan Haji Ali Munawar is present here today as a Muslim. He does not speak for the government. So please don't look upon him as a spokesman for the government and put all the sins of the government on his shoulders. Now, Mr. Vijaya Samaravikrama.
Venerable Sir, Yang Berhormat Dr. Goh, thank you for pronouncing my name right. Brothers and sisters, when I was asked to speak on this topic, the first thing that came to my mind was, religious harmony, is it possible? Then I thought of my school days. Standard 1, I was asked to draw the Bunga Raya. Standard 2, I was asked to draw the Bunga Raya. Standard 4, Bunga Raya. Form 5, Bunga Raya. Form 6, Bunga Raya. Till today, I cannot draw the Bunga Raya. This question, religious harmony, is it possible, was not asked when I was in Standard 1, but 2,500 years ago. The Emperor Asoka, 2,200 years ago, wrote on a rock, bukan kertas, bukan air, bukan apa pun, on rock. And he said, I put this so that this message will last as long as the sun and the moon endure. And this is what he said. One who reverences one's own religion and disparages that of another from devotion to one's own religion and to glorify one's own religion over other religions does injury to his own religion. You know what happened to that thing? That piece of rock was covered by sand for 1,000 years. Nobody remembered it until some Kepo white man, archaeologist, dug it up. Now, we all pay lip service, a lot of lip service to this thing. Now, what I want to say is, we all talk about it all the time. Are we really doing something about it? When I was young, I drew the Bunga Raya. And then I grew up and joined the temple. I asked my reverend, what will there be? Will there be unity? Will there be amity? Here's what he said to me. Que sera, sera, manalah aku tahu. Que sera, sera, what will be, will be. The chief sings like that. The point is, ladies and gentlemen, we can go on talking about this problem forever and ever and ever, but we will never come to a conclusion. This is why, in some instances, Lord Buddha remained silent. And this is one case when we should remain silent. I promise Dr. Goa remain silent in 10 minutes' time. But it does no harm to talk about it. Because the more we talk about it, the more it will clarify in our own minds. Because I believe that this problem of religious harmony and religious tolerance cannot be dictated to by a government. Emperor Asoka did it on rock and said, you all must behave. We didn't behave. He said, even if our government tells us to behave as a nation, we cannot behave. We must believe individually. We must change each of us. Actually, we don't need this seminar. We don't need this forum. The guys who need the forum are out there in the markets. They are the ones who are killing each other in the name of religion. We are the good guys. Yeah? Why preach to us? Yeah? So I believe that, however, if we know how to go about spreading this harmony and goodwill on an individual basis, we will be able to have some achievement. For the growing good of the world is partly dependent on unhistoric acts. And that things are not so ill with you and me is half owing to the numbers who have lived faithfully a hidden life and lie in unvisited tombs. Meaning, if each of us can do our little bit towards religious tolerance in harmony and not be expected to be praised for it, to have monuments built for it. Here lies Go Seng Chai. He organized a seminar on religious tolerance. No, that's not important. What is important is individually we make our contribution, then we die and get forgotten. And hopefully the ripples that we created will go on and on and on. One of the problems which have militated in this country against religious tolerance is the fear of some people to have dialogue. There is a tremendous fear. I'm very, very glad that not our representative of a government, but our Muslim brother, Haji Munawa, and I notice one more Muslim brother, they are here. But it's very, very difficult when we have seminars of this nature to get representatives of all the religions to get together and talk. Because we know from what my children tell me, they bring back from school, my mother said, my father said, don't talk about your religion, because if I talk about your religion after I change one, no. You see? Now this is what is militating against dialogue. This fear. But I believe, and all of us believe, that the more we have dialogue, the more we test our faith against the way other people believe, the things that other people believe in. If we do not change, we become more convinced about our own truth. And this was said by our Lord Buddha in the Kalama Sutra. Do not believe what you hear. Do not believe because you say, my teacher said so. Believe because you have tested it against your own intelligence. You have tested it against other beliefs, other facts. And when you have done so, and you have learned that you have good reason to believe what you believe in, then it will be impossible to shake it. There is no need, Emperor Asoka, to write things on stone. You see? This is necessary. Dialogue is necessary. We should not be afraid to challenge our beliefs, because they are only beliefs. Okay. Is religious harmony possible? I think we have said over and over again, it is possible. Maybe we should ask ourselves, why has it not been realized? Why does it always remain unreachable, like the moon, the star, isn't it? To reach for an unreachable star, something like that. Why is it like this star? The impossible dream. I think it is because while there are a lot of sincere people of religion, men of religion, men who sincerely believe what we talk about, there are an equally larger number, in fact, of people who are religious charlatans. People who use the label Buddhist and kill screaming pigs for Monday's market. There are equally charlatans in all the other religions who are insincere, who go for power, who go for economic wealth, who go for numerical strength. And we Buddhists are no different. We are just as guilty as everybody else. But those of us who are like that are not Buddhist, not Muslim, not Hindu, not Christian. They do not qualify. They can wear the label, they can write in golden letters, I am a Buddhist, but they are not Buddhist because they only carry the label. It is not in the heart. Our enemies are not the Christians. They are not the Muslims. The enemies of the Buddhists are ignorance, hatred, and greed. And these are the enemies of every other religion. People are not our enemies. I hate mankind, somebody said, but I love Tom, Dick, and Harry. Yeah? Brothers and sisters, Dr. Go, bear with me 2 more minutes. I have a dream. And my dream is to participate in a forum where every speaker stands up and says what is wrong with the way his own religion is practiced. And he praises the religious practices of other religions. For example, I as a Buddhist must come and say everything that is wrong with the way Buddhists practice their religion and how all the other religions are right. And other speakers must do the same thing. Yeah? I do not mean I come and condemn my religious tenets. I do not condemn my scriptures. The way it is practiced. Let me begin with the Buddhists. The Buddha said, he who sees the Dhamma sees me. Even though someone were to hold the hem of my robe and not have the Dhamma in his heart, he is far from me and I am far from him. Conversely, if someone practices the Dhamma, then he is dear to me and I am near to him, even though he is 10 leagues distant. By this token, how many Buddhists are there whom we can call Buddhist? How many Buddhists have anger, hatred, delusion in their hearts? And they call themselves Buddhists. Yeah? And these are the people we have to fight. Yeah? It is very hard to make sure that every Muslim practices the teachings of the Prophet, to make every Christian practice the teaching of Jesus, to make every Hindu practice his scriptures, and for every Sikh to follow the injunction of his gurus. If each one of us, don't worry about other religions, don't go around wasting time finding fault with other people. If each Buddhist can behave as a good Buddhist, religious harmony is not only possible here, in heaven also it will be possible. Yeah. Now, this is another thing. In our attempts to say that religious harmony is possible, we keep saying, my religion is just like yours. Now, recently in the Straits Times, Sunday Mail, there has been this huge argument about nirvana and God. And the writer, bless him, he, in his enthusiasm to develop interfaith harmony, for which I praise him, has said that nirvana equals God. No, it does not. Not by any stretch of the imagination. And you only need to read the Buddhism a little bit to know that those two are entirely different. But why do we bend over backwards to say that we are all the same? We would be very dull. We'll be like cloning. Each one is exactly like each other. We Buddhists believe in unity in diversity. You believe what you want. I believe what I want. If it is good for me, fine. But I will not push it down your throat, and please don't push your stuff down my throat either. But we must recognize our ability to see differences. This is very important. Yeah? And, okay. Conclusion. I wrote 1 hour's worth, they give me 15 minutes. Mana boleh. Right. Therefore, in order to ask the question whether religious harmony is possible, I would say yes, provided that we are prepared to educate our own followers about respecting other views and to increase the knowledge of our own faith and the understanding of our faith among others. And when will that be achieved?
I open the discussion to the floor and place all our panelists before your firing squad. And let's see whether they can laugh and sing after you have cornered them and pinned them down. Now, I believe that a good discussion rests on discussion. So, the microphone is, can you bring that stand down? Yeah? And so please shoot your questions fast. I have a special request from Mr. Harbhajan Singh because he has to attend some urgent matter, and so if you have questions, please address to him first, but feel free to address to others.
So first thing I'd like to say, comment on, that is from what I see, there's always emphasis on the differences, and from what I understand is that every religion is preaching one thing, that is the truth. And if every religion is preaching the truth, in mathematical way, there is only one truth. So mathematically, that means it's only one. Maybe the way is different. So from what I see, there's no much, there's no difference in fact. And what I hear, I'd like to pose a question is that I wonder why Islam don't have a representative in the consultative committee.